Hello, fellow creatives. In this video, you'll learn the process pros use to design characters. Make sure you have the foundation for this video. Watch part 1 on what you need to know to design deep characters. Click here to watch it now. If you already watched it, you're ready to dive into part 2. Let's go! I'm gonna start going into design tips. I am gonna get into like a walkthrough of like how to design a character, but before I get there, I'm gonna go through some of these design tips, which are just really important things to think about as you are getting into the character design process. So yeah, it's important to think about the distribution of detail and leading the eye, as well as having areas of rest and where you're trying to draw the eye into, the focal point of your design. This is like a posed character, and so it's very much all leading the eye through the piece over and over again, whether it be like with the lighting, with the weapon. But as a character design, like even if you're just doing like a turnaround sheet, the principles all still apply, where you want to have focus points that you're trying to draw. Like most of the time, people want to lead your eye to their face and then like maybe to the weapon. And it's just something that as you're doing any character design, you don't want it to end up too jumbled. So you still want to have areas of rest as well. And then shape design. Shape design's super important. A lot of people will tend to stick to one kind of form. Like they're like, this is the ideal woman or the ideal man. And they'll just draw like that one anatomy on all their characters. And that's cool, that's fine. But you can really push your characters by really utilizing shape design, exaggerating things. Like even when you think, oh, if I make it any bigger, it's gonna be ugly. Don't worry about it. Push your designs as much as you can. That's like a standard rule for all animators, for all character designers. Like when you think you've pushed it too far, push it even further and see how far you can really go with it. Because worst case scenario, so what if it looks a little bit ugly? You could just copy paste it and then pull it back. But you never know how far you can go until you've pushed it that much. And like as a general rule for how we psychologically think about shapes, we think of round shapes as being like really cute and soft and friendly. Like you can trust that. Thin and angular, like really long, thin legs, like Slender Man, that's all considered creepy. Sharp shapes are immediately menacing and intimidating. Long and flowy are majestic kind of shapes. Square is normally more strong. It normally feels a bit more intimidating, commanding, stoic. Here are some character shape ideas by TB Choi. You can see how she combines shapes like square and round to get a sturdy but friendly character, or an example of a thin and angular character that feels creepy. These are great examples of how you can use shape design for your characters. By combining the shapes, you can get really interesting feeling from the character, like different dynamics. More into that, use a variety of body types and push the shapes in your designs to help define different aspects of your character. When in doubt, keep it simple. Keep it simple is like, you can start with even just the silhouette of your character and just have like essentially blobs, and then go from there, make an entire character on the silhouette based on those shapes. Another thing that you can use to your advantage is using visual cues and familiar associations. Use this to create a relatable story with your character's design. And so for this character we have in the background, when I look at it, I immediately get the visual cues from it are imperialistic. It's sci-fi, so this takes place in the future. This character seems very well trained. They're disciplined with their blade. Like they know what they're doing by their stance, and like they seem like they're almost military trained potentially. They're very slender and quick. Like imagine just from these concepts how this character would move, how they would like swirl around with their blade out and like have very swift movements and feel super sleek because of the way that they're so slender.
Crazy how the design like gives you all that like knowledge, just like right off the bat we look at it and we have all those feelings.
Yeah, that's how you know it's a really good character design.
Yeah.
And then another aspect of what makes this character so interesting, it feels more mysterious because it doesn't have a face. Anytime you add a mask, anytime you don't fully reveal the face, it makes the character more interesting because you're like, ooh, like you can't fully associate with them if you can't see their face. And so it has the air of mystery, and partly because of the face and partly because the colors being dark and then very extremely saturated and vibrant, you can't tell, are they a friend or a foe?
Yeah.
This character is intentionally left mysterious. If this character approached you, you wouldn't know they were a friend or a foe, because they also have like the really like sharp and long and thin shapes that makes you a little bit creeped out, like you're uncertain. And
Yeah.
but then they also have like these baggy round shapes, and so you're like, oh yeah, like those softer round shapes like make it feel more friendly in a way. And it's like soft materials mixed with hard materials, and so it's hard to decide, like, would this be friendly? I don't know.
Yeah. I love that push and that pull feeling. Something else I heard too before was that if you don't see somebody's hands, you are less likely to trust them, and you can't like see his hands in that one stance when he's just standing there.
Yeah. And then these are
My fave.
oh, you know what these are.
Yes.
Yeah, so a technique that is used in a lot of games especially is you want to draw the eye using a value hierarchy, where you have gradients with your characters, where the feet are the darkest part of the character and the heads are the most saturated and bright, because you want to draw focus to the heads. And especially in games like Dota and League of Legends, like the top-down kind of games, you're mostly looking at the characters' heads, like their upper bodies. And so the upper bodies have the most detail on them. The distribution goes down and down and down until there's like barely any detail at the feet, because they're trying to draw your eye up to the face. That's like the main focal point of the whole design. Then we have, when creating your designs, also keep in mind that you can use these factors to your advantage. And that's negative space, which is all the area around the character. It creates this really nice silhouette. Another thing is tangents to draw the eye. Most of the time you want to avoid tangents, but sometimes they can benefit if you're trying to intentionally, like, you want to have a bunch of leading lines into a focal point. But most of the time tangents flatten out the image, so most of the time I would avoid tangents. Simplifying detail, sometimes you want to go all out with detail, and that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, it's more memorable for a character to have, like, less is more. If you simplify the detail, you'll remember aspects of that character more. You can also use patterns to your advantage. I wouldn't put patterns all over absolutely everything, but if you use them sparingly, it's really nice. Like the pants have a nice like triangular pattern all over them, like a geometric pattern. Or like you find one thing, like maybe they have a hat that has like a denim kind of feel to it. And it's just nice here and there to have a little bit of pattern. Another thing, and this is something that I struggle with sometimes, cohesive color palette. Sometimes you just want to go out and you're like, I love colors, and you just want to like use every color. When you're trying to come up with a character that you want to use, like an iconic character that, like, if you want to make this character something that you're going to draw a lot, then it would benefit you more to start with a palette in mind and be like, okay, I'm only going to stick to these colors. And like, if you do add in more colors, they should be more neutral kind of colors, like maybe tan or gray or black or white, and like try to really stick to that color palette. Otherwise it just ends up getting jumbled if you have too many. Okay, so here we go. Now we're getting into the meat of it. So those are all things to think about before you get to this step. Try and keep those in mind as you're going through these steps. So you first want to come up with the general idea and the story for your character. What kind of world do they live in? And that's really important to think about, the world that they live in, because like, what if you decide that your character has gold earrings, but then in the world you live in, like, you don't want there to be any type of metals at all? There's certain things that'll really inform how you design the shapes. Like, what if it's medieval era and then you give them a weapon that couldn't possibly exist in their time? Then it would like really draw back from the whole idea of that character. What era, what kind of personality do they have? It's good to write those things all down, like around the character, to keep them in mind as you're designing them. Their profession is really important, and like what hobbies they might have, because maybe they could always carry around little mementos or little aspects of the things that they're interested in on them, and that can also play into their personality. Like maybe their hobby is that they fly kites all day, and so there's a lot of things that you could do with that, like with things that you could put on them, or how they express themselves. Like maybe because they fly kites all day, they're like really free. Their personality is like super jovial, and they're like always aloof and just kind of like floating around.
Yeah.
All of those little things that you think of could be aspects that you draw in for your character. And what influences them? Because every character shouldn't just come out of the void, out of nowhere. They should have an idea behind them. Like, what if they wanted to do their whole life? Where are they going? Try and think of where they came from and where they're heading towards. And then you'll want to gather references, of course, poses, try and get down the facial expressions that fit the character best, what kind of hairstyle they might have, their clothing. Maybe they have like really strong style, like maybe they're like super cyberpunk, or like maybe they don't know much about clothes and they're just kind of like a beggar or whatever. Those are like really quick reads. Give them props, supporting objects, pets, and then different materials. Like if it's sci-fi, they don't have to have all metal on them. Like you could make it feel more organic by having some leather on them here or there, or like add a twist to it to make it more interesting and different from designs you've seen before. After you have all of the ideas noted down where you want to go direction-wise, then you can start to create the loose thumbnails and silhouette sketches for your character design. You want to keep them really dynamic and loose at this point, and don't get into the details, into the nitty-gritty yet. Just like try and get the shapes down to begin with, and then do a ton of iterations. Like when you start, you can just do like 4 or 5, but if you don't get exhausted and bored with it, I would do like 20 and just keep going with it, and like try and push the design as much as you can in each iteration. Like if you think you've gone too far, go even further and just see how far you can take it. Don't be afraid to over-exaggerate your shapes. You can always rein it in later, and then try and decide on the iconic elements of the character that really define them. And you can do that even in the silhouette stage before you get into rendering the character. Once you figure out which thumbnails you like best and you want to explore them more in depth, then you can start to make a cleaner, more detailed render of it, and this will be like your official character narrative illustrations that you can put them in like a pose that really represents their personality, and then like render it as far as you want to. You can just use flat colors, that's totally fine too, but if you want to go all out, you can render it as much as you want, and then that'll be like your defining character illustration, and then you can have all the supporting illustrations around it, and those can include callouts like for their weapons, and it can include like any kind of things that they have on them. Like maybe they have a little satchel on them, and then you want to show like they have in this satchel, they always keep a pendant that their mother gave them, and they have lint, and they have gum, and they have donuts, and they have like whatever they always have on them, because those also show aspects of your character. Like this character never leaves their house without a donut in their satchel. That's a pretty that's a pretty good quirk.
Yeah.
And so all those little callouts also help make the person feel more attached to the character.
Absolutely. It's the things that make them memorable.
Yeah. And then these are kind of supplementary, but it depends how in depth you're going with the character and how it's going to be used. Facial expression sheets can help if you're trying to figure out how I want this character to move, how I want them to really show their personality. Maybe they're really stoic characters. They don't have much expression, but like think of like Hanzo from Overwatch. He could still have different expressions, but you have to figure out how to make those subtle expressions readable so that people could still tell like he's definitely sad, and then have a different expression that's like he's jealous, but like what's the difference between sad and jealous, and like try and capture those subtle expressions even for a character that doesn't have that much facial variance. And then this is also generally done in games, but I've seen this done for people making their own characters too. They like to show sheets that have just the abilities, and this helps in games for the VFX artists when they're making it. But like as a general thing, like if you want to, like let's say you have a character that's psychic or something, and you're trying to figure out in your illustrations how you want to showcase that, it can help to have this kind of diagram that you can just easily showcase that. And then all of those concepts would all go to the character modeler, who would then take them and be able to use them. And then, so we're getting near the end. These are just some ideas for how to generate ideas for characters. You can take a character and change the theme or add a twist. And this is the easiest way to just like immediately make a character more interesting. Like you could just add a holiday theme, Art Nouveau, deadly flower theme, astrology sign theme, make them as a villain. Like there's endless things that you can add on to just be like, how can I do this character? But maybe they're dead. You could just like add on whatever you want to make them feel totally different, and like how would the character look when they're redesigned this way. It also helps if you use a random prompt generator, and I have a link to a really good one that's fantastic for like humans, for creatures. Like it has a whole bunch of different topics that you can pick. You can combine a bunch of prompts to make them even more interesting if you want. Another thing that you can do is take photos of textures and draw over the shapes to create characters, because that's a way to take abstract silhouettes and then make a character out of them. This is something that I did in school as well, and it was like my favorite exercise, where like these were all just random photos that I took or found. If you have like a marble pattern on your tiles in the shower, you ever like stare at them and like see different things? Like
all the time.
Yeah, and then make characters out of all these, like just draw over them. And so that's another great way. Your mind can just be free, and then you just kind of like draw what you see. And these were all just literal scribbles. They like just make scribbles and then take your favorite ones and make them into characters. And so these were my these were my scribbles that I did. And then from these, like here, the 3 scribbles down here that I liked, I made into these characters here.
Oh, sweet.
And then like this middle character here, I had to refine even, or wait, actually this one and this one, I had to refine even further. And then those became these 2 characters here. So based on those random scribbles, I came up with character designs. All the rest of these are all the same thing. Like these are all just silhouette, abstract, crazy, random things. And then like here's one, this middle one is that guy down there. So like all of these were all just like based on random scribble doodle type things.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's super cool. I'm like, silhouette's definitely a weak point for me, I think, so that would be really helpful.
These were all just like, I did all of these in like an hour. And you can, for me at least, when I look at these, I can see a character in almost every single one of these.
Me too, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, so like in an hour, I made 50 different characters. And like, I've gone back over the years, like I did this back in 2012. And I've gone back over the years and like just pulled out one silhouette and then like rendered out that character, because I already have a character I want to make. And I just go back and do it. Like this one right here, I made that character as like a fully rendered illustration a few years later. Here's that character.
Oh, yeah.
And there's the little silhouette in the corner.
That's so cool. Look at him. Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you can also see how, like, if you know creature design more, if you know animals and how animal anatomy works, then, like, it can really benefit when you're trying to do these silhouette characters that, like, obviously, most of these silhouettes couldn't be humans, but you can make these really cool silhouettes and then just make them into an actual believable type creature if you know animal anatomy well enough. So, like, it frees your mind.
That's, like, so useful.
Yeah. So that's just a few ways to come up with your own designs. Like, even if you're like, I don't feel like drawing humans today, I don't feel like I can even draw today, it's always good to try and keep the discipline up of like, just keep drawing. Even, I mean, you don't have to force yourself to like unhealthy states, but you know, like if it's been like a couple weeks and you're like, man, I feel like I should draw, but like I just don't really feel like, you know, like looking at muscles and trying to figure them out today. Like I just want to go easy. You can let your mind be free, go flowy with it. And then like, you never know what you'll come up with. Like you could come up with your new favorite character just by doing like a bunch of ink blobs and then refining it later. At least for me, it helps to try and convince myself if I'm like, I'll just do a couple little doodles. Like start very small, like give yourself the most achievable goals ever. Like I will literally just draw a single blob that'll become a dog tonight or something. And then like when you're doing that, you're like, oh, I really like this. And then like 5 hours later, you're like, oh, I made a full illustration. Okay. Like,
right. Trick yourself.
Yeah, set yourself those achievable goals, and then you'll find yourself getting really into it more often than not. And like, if you don't get really into it, that's totally fine too. But it makes it so much easier if you give yourself those kind of goals to start off with, instead of being like, I'm gonna sit down for the next 8 hours and this better be the best next drawing I've ever done. But yeah. Another really cool prompt idea, also by TV Choi, they do these really awesome inspired drawings where they'll take an antique object, and like antique objects, because they're so handcrafted, they tend to be really unique and they have a lot of charm. They have a lot of like really interesting, intricate shapes to them. And like you can take any antique object pretty much and make a whole character around it. Just design based on the elements in that antique object.
Wow, yeah, I liked that one a lot. That's really pretty. So well designed.
Yeah. these the last couple slides here. These are just some resources for color palettes. There's coolers, and there's also color lovers. But coolers is really cool because you can generate your own palettes, you can get other people's palettes, and it's just a lot more intuitive. Here's the idea prompt generator I told you about, where it has like a ton of different options, and like it comes up with just enough detail where like I can work with that, but not like too in depth. And then sometimes if you have a pose in your mind, but you just can't quite find that reference for it online, like very specific pose, you can just use an online 3D human poser where you just like move them around and it's all free. You just pull the little bubbles around and then move them into the pose that you want and then draw them. And then character designer references is like kind of a hub. They don't really have like tutorials and stuff, but it's just like they post a lot of art done by character designers, so it's just like a good inspirational kind of site in general. And then if you want to get more into the storytelling aspect of things, a great place to start is look at Pixar's 22 Rules for Storytelling. So this is just an Imgur album that someone made. Like one of the Pixar artists made this for people as a resource. It has all of their rules that they go by. And like they go through all of these different ideas that Pixar artists use when they're designing characters. So those are good things to keep in mind. And then some art books. These are my favorite character design kind of art books. The Skillful Huntsman, it was made by a few different artists who are at Art Center Culture of Design, some really amazing character artists, and they also do like environments, they do creatures, they do all kinds of stuff in the Skillful Huntsman, and it's totally worth it. Like I've looked at a lot of art books and there's very few where they go into their process as much as in this book, where it's not like really nitty gritty where it's like painful to read tons of paragraphs, but like they say just enough where you understand their process and it's not just like watching someone draw and they're like, look, I made it. Like,
Yeah.
they give just enough information so that you can understand what their headspace is and like how they came to that idea.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
As for learning creatures, because for animals, it's easy enough. You can just look at photos anywhere for animals. But for designing creatures, Tara Whitlatch, like I said, she's the best. She's the standard for all creature designers. Like, she is the queen. So she has these 2 books that go into how she designs creatures, and they're both absolutely fantastic. And you could just get one or the other. You don't technically need both, but they're both fantastic. And then these are awesome character designers. If you just need some inspiration and like every once in a while you may not really be sure what you want to make, these guys are all just inspiration, just completely full of inspiration. One of these is a studio, so it's like a bunch of people, but I thought I would still mention it because they have so much good stuff. Like
Yeah.
just endless amounts of insane, just like so much. It just keeps going. Like, look at all this.
Yeah. This is gold mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty.
It just keeps going. But anyways, yeah. So, and even just like each one of these is like multiple images. So it's like all of these are full character designs.
Wow. I'm just incredibly impressed.
Yeah. So I have all of these great character designers on here. Enjoy them. Suck up the inspiration.
Yes, I love the inspiration. Nicholas Cole is one of my favorites too. I really like Nicholas Cole's work.
That's why he's number one. That's why he's number one. I love him so much.
Me too.
Yeah.
Good. We have a lot of like similar art taste for sure.
Yeah. And his palettes too. Like, especially as someone who struggles with limiting the palette, like he's just every one of his characters and all of his illustrations. I want to print them all out and put them on my walls.
I know. I agree. Me too. Oh, this is such a good presentation. Thank you so much for putting all this together. I'm so inspired and there's a lot of good info in there that I'm just really soaked up and absorbed. So thank you.
Yeah.
Ah, amazing. Beautiful.
So I hope you've been well enough inspired and you know the steps to take now to continue with that inspiration, to make things out of it.
Yes. Oh man, so many ideas now. Thank you.
Like and subscribe if you want to learn more art tips. If you enjoyed this video, you should watch this one on how to overcome art block next.